Good morning and welcome to our first video on circles. So a circle is the set of all points x, y that are equidistant from a fixed point called the center of the circle. So what I want to do for you is derive the formula for the equation of the circle, and I want the circle to be centered at the origin, okay? So here you'll see I have a coordinate plane, and I'm going to have the center of the circle be at 0, 0, okay? And the point, or the points on the circle, are a bunch of x, y values, okay? So I'm just going to pick a random point here, and I have no idea how I got there, but I went over some distance in the x direction and some distance in the y direction. So I'm going to label this point generically x, y, okay? And the definition tells me that I should be able to, no matter where I am on the circle, right, be the exact same distance from the origin. So the way that I'm going to derive the formula for the circle is I'm going to use the distance formula. How far is it from this point x, y to this point 0, 0? And that should be the same distance all the way around. So let's recall the distance formula. Okay, it's the same thing as the Pythagorean theorem. If I were to draw a right triangle, I could do the exact same thing. But let's just formally use the distance formula. So we should know this by now. We've seen it in all of our other derivations, right? We used it to derive the law of sines, the law of cosines. It's a very powerful formula. So this is the quantity x2 minus x1 squared plus the quantity y2 minus y1 squared. All right, so let's plug in our values, okay? So what do we know? x2 minus x1. Let's use this as x2. So x minus 0 squared plus y2 minus y1. So this is y minus 0 squared. Now, this will be simplified to, right? That's just going to be x squared plus y squared. Okay, now we need to do something else. We need to, instead of calling it distance, right? Instead of calling this value d, you and I both know from geometry that this would be called the radius of the circle. So instead of d, I'm going to use r, okay? And what we typically do with the circle formula is people don't usually like to look at radicals. We find that kind of annoying. So a better way to look at the formula would be to look at this formula without the radicals. So what we're going to do is we're going to square both sides, which is perfectly legal. Okay, so we're going to square both sides. This gives me r squared equals, the square root undoes the squared term, x squared plus y squared. And if you're like me, it bothers me to write it this way, so I need to say that x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And this is the general formula for the equation of the circle. It is derived from the distance formula, otherwise known as the Pythagorean theorem. And if you wanted to use the Pythagorean theorem, you could come up here and say, hey, this distance is the radius, that's r. You could make a right triangle, okay? You would know that this distance here is x, this distance here is y, and using the Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus y squared would equal r squared. I will see you in the next video.